school that is not on your program. So I will read now for you the order of appearance, and then you will add on your list the school that is not on your program. So they just pick their numbers to determine the order of appearance, and the St. Vincent Girls High School, correct me if I pronounce anybody's name wrong so I could get it right on air, because this is being brought live on radio, on Facebook, and on VC3 television. So St. Vincent Girls High School is Michaela Friday. Michaela, right? So I got that. They will be speaking first. Second, in terms of order of appearance, so the judges could note, will be the St. Clair Dacon Secondary School, Milan Joseph, correct pronunciation. Third would be Bishop's College, Kingstown. It's Fitzria. Hello, Fitzria. Fitzria Morgan, right? Bishop's College, Kingstown will speak third. Fourth, from the Dr. J.P. Eustace Memorial Secondary School, Desra De Silva. And fifth, from the St. Joseph's Convent, Kingstown, Jovian. Right, so the E is silent. Jovian Edwards. So that would be the order of appearance. So the St. Vincent Girls High School, Michaela Friday. The St. Clair Dacon Secondary School, Milan Joseph. The Bishop's College, Kingstown, Fitzria Morgan. The Dr. J.P. Eustace Memorial Secondary School, Desra De Silva. And the St. Joseph's Convent, Kingstown, Jovian Edwards. So that would be the order of appearance today. So I'm very pleased that we are able to have 5 schools participating. It should have been how many? 6? So one school from that zone didn't take up the offer to be part of this competition. All the judges are here. Timekeeper is here. Wait, let me make sure I have the name of the timekeeper. Let me get it on my program. okay with the protocol, eh? You ready? Okay, we'll do the prayer first. Alright? So at the anthem finish, you'll just go into the prayer. Please stand for the national anthem, followed by prayer.
Saint Vincent, land so beautiful, with joyful heart we pledge to thee our loyalty and love, and hope to keep you ever free. What if the future brings? Our faith will see us through. May peace reign from shore to shore, and God bless and keep us true. High ruler, fair and blessed Isle, your mountains high, so clear and green, are home to me. Though I may stray, our heaven comes serene. Whate'er the future brings, our faith will see us through. May peace reign from shore to shore, and God bless and keep us true. Our little sister islands are those gems, the lovely grenadines, upon their seas and golden sun, the sunshine ever beam. Whatever the future brings, our faith will see us through. May peace reign from shore to shore, and God bless and keep us true.
Dear Heavenly Father, God, we invite your presence here with me once more, oh God. God, you say where two and three are gathered, you are in the midst, oh God. So we invite your presence in our midst this evening, oh God, as we are about to begin this evening procedure. God, we pray that you may take full control, oh God. We bring the participants before you, oh God. God, we pray that you may remove every spirit of doubt from their lives right now, God, in the name of Jesus. God, as they speak, oh God, they will speak boldly, oh God, right now, God, in the name of Jesus. God, we pray that you may take full control, oh God, of this ceremony, oh God, in Jesus' name.
Thank you very much. Prayer invocation was done by Giovanna Welcome from the J.P. Eustace Memorial Secondary School. Dr. J.P. Eustace Memorial Secondary. Thank you very well. Let me first recognize representative from the sponsoring company Flo, Nicola Williams. We also have a representative from the Human Rights Association, LaFleur Johnson. We have with us other members of the Lions Club family here. We have principals and teachers of the various secondary schools. We have with us as well the media, our distinguished judges, who we will let you know who they are in a moment. We also have with us the most important people for today, the students, the participating schools. And I really would like to mention the schools, the St. Vincent Girls High School, the Bishop's College, Kingstown, the St. Clair Dacon Secondary School, the Dr. J.P. Eustace Memorial Secondary School, and the St. Joseph's Convent, Kingstown. We really do appreciate their presence and participation here today. Of course, we have our timekeeper who is ready to go, and her name is Josanna Harris, Leo, from the Leo Club of Kingstown, SVG. I would like, as president of the Lions Club South and also as chairperson of today's proceedings, to welcome one and all gathered here at the Frenches house. I would also like to welcome all those of you who are listening via Nice Radio, on Facebook, as well as those on WeFM. We also like to welcome viewers to VC3 Channel 14. We also would like to recognize, very importantly, our partners in this project, which is now going for almost 30 years. Actually, public speaking, or secondary school public speaking, started by the St. Vincent JCs in around 1976, so it's about 42 years that we have been having public speaking in the secondary, from among the secondary schools. It doesn't mean that it happened all 42 years. There was, during the time of our Lions Club, there was a little breakdown one year, a few years ago, when we didn't have a competition. That little mishap between us and the Ministry of Education, we have gone past that. There was also a short lull between the time when the St. Vincent JCs went into dormancy and the Lions Club South decided to take over this competition. But as a club, we have been hosting this competition for almost 30 years. And for all those years, I want to give you something. 3 companies sponsored this competition. It started with Cable and Wireless, then it went to Lime, and then it came down to Flow. Same difference, you would say. We have always have very good partnership with the company in sponsoring this competition. We also have partnered over all those years with the Ministry of Education, and I am hoping that someone will be here from the ministry to bring greetings. I haven't seen anyone yet. This year also we have decided to have a little input from the Human Rights Association. So you will hear a representative from the Human Rights Association bringing some brief remarks. And as you would notice, 2 or 3 of the topics are very much linked to the issues that the Human Rights Association has been advocating on. So we have given the Human Rights Association some support in terms of engaging our young people in discussing important topics that are relevant to them. We, as a club, the Lions Club South, For those who are viewing, you would see we have a little standing banner. That is what you call it? Standy, yes. And it says, the Lions Club of St. Vincent South celebrating 40 years. This year represents 40 years since this club started, and we have been having meetings at our den over at Enums. So we are going to have very big celebration. The actual date for our celebration will begin in October. So part of the activities to commemorate our 40th anniversary will start with, in October, the health fair that we are going to host outside the post office area, that car park right next to the post office. So on the 12th of October, we'll be having a health fair during the morning, a Friday morning. Then on the 25th, the Wednesday, I want to make sure I have the date right, I think it's the 24th of October, the finals of public speaking at the Methodist Church Hall. Then we will have it in the last week in November, several other activities. Internally, we'll have games, activities, we'll reach out to the needy during that week. We will also be hosting a very big cocktail party at the Sunset Shows Hotel. That will be on the 30th of November. We have that a Friday night cocktail party, so some of you can come. It's only $100 to be part of it. So we are really into big celebrations, and I must say, next week, same month of October, on the 6th of October, we are going to see the launch of a new Lions Club in our zone. On the island of Grenada, the parish of St. John's, we are going to be launching a new Lions Club in Grenada, the St. John's Lions Club. The area we call Guave, there we have decided to have a new club. So, and that is part of our zone. Zone 3C consists of clubs in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada. So we are very busy during this time, and we are really pleased that we can gather here this afternoon to host the first of the 4 preliminaries for the secondary school flow public speaking competition. I will mention during the course of the afternoon other little things that will be happening, but I must say how grateful we are to the teachers for really getting together and working with our students. And I am saying this in the midst of the fact that when we contacted some of the schools, some of them are telling us last week that they haven't heard anything about the competition. And I refuse to accept any teacher or principal who will tell us that they knew nothing about this year's competition. If you are one of those guilty schools, then you really should think again. Because, as I said, for nearly 42 years, this competition has been happening around the same time. And I know of schools that contacted us beforehand, since in August, to find out the timing and when they will get the topics and so on. And that is the kind of interest I have seen from some of our schools. And some of them are here today and will be here during the rest of this week. So any school that chooses not to participate, I must tell you, you are really denying your students of an opportunity to benefit from an activity that will bring serious profile enhancement to that student in years to come. The first public speaking winner of this competition is now a judge. I think he's a judge somewhere in the islands. That is Colin Williams. He was the first winner. of the public speaking competition. And if I go down the list of all the winners turn out to be outstanding persons in society throughout the Caribbean. So, and I would not say all what Flo is going to tell us about their contribution to this competition. So you are also denying the student the opportunity to benefit from very good support that the company, our sponsor, Flo, is going to provide. So those of you who are here, I must commend you, and I'm really pleased to give you the support and hope that we will see the best 6 persons going into the finals on October 24th. Is it the Wednesday, the 24th? Yes. So it is my duty now to call on a few persons to bring some remarks, after which we will get straight into the competition. So let me invite Ms. Nikayla Williams, representative of Flo. I think Nikayla is the marketing executive of the company, and she will bring us her remarks.
Chairman of the Lions Club South, representative from the Ministry of Education that's on their way very soon, very shortly, representative from the Human Rights Association, other members of the Lions Club, members of the media, all students, teachers, and of course, participants. A pleasant good afternoon to you. I'll be very brief today so we can get right into the competition, right? So during the 40 plus years history of the Lions Club South, St. Vincent has been making a tremendous positive impact on this country, from implementation of numerous projects throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines to upholding a very strong tradition of public speaking. So that's what the Lions Club South has been doing over all these years, and we must give them a rousing round of applause for their efforts and continued efforts, I must say. For over 25 years, Cable and Wireless, Lime, now Flo, as you heard Mr. Backer said, we have morphed into very many entities, but still the one same company that has maintained our support of this prestigious event. And this event gives the opportunity to secondary school students to prove themselves among their peers. Not only is this a hallmark moment for the competing students, but for the entire student body. And I see that you turned out in your numbers today to support your fellow students and give them 100% support. So I just want to, just briefly, I'm trying to figure out which schools are not here. So when I call the school's name, if you could just make a little bit of noise, or maybe a lot, let me find out who has the most persons here participating there. And we're not going to take a long time. We're just trying to raise the roof just a little bit, not too much, all right? All right, so let me hear Bishop's College here. Anyone from Bishop's College? They're not here. You see, I don't know, I hear one scream. Can you scream a little louder? I'll scream with you. Bishop's College? I didn't hear nobody from Bishop's College. All right, all right, all right. We're just getting warmed up. St. Clair Dacon Secondary School. How many persons are here for St. Clair Dacon? One. All right. St. Joseph's Convent. St. Joseph's Convent. Girls High School. JP Eustace. Yes. All right. So, which one am I forgetting, Mr. Bacchus? I got all the schools right. Now that's the excitement that I want to hear, because right up here, your fellow classmates, students, they are nervous. They shouldn't really be, but yes, they are very nervous. And hearing all of that just made them know that they are not in this alone, all right? Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, all right. To you participants, I have only one piece of advice. I want for you to approach this exercise with seriousness. But above all, enjoy every moment of it. Dale Carnegie said, people rarely succeed unless they enjoy what they're doing. Remember to relax. With confidence, visualize the rousing round of applause that you will receive at the end of your address. And just smile. You'll be all right. I applaud the teachers and the principals on giving the Lions Club South Flow Public Speaking Competition the attention that it deserves. It is very important for our young people to understand the importance of effective communication, whether it be written or verbal. The ability to effectively communicate builds confidence and aids in decision making and, of course, career building. 7 years ago, Flow added a scholarship component to further incentivize participants. So this is what Mr. Bacchus was speaking about. We decided, you know what, we do not want you to lose your momentum. We do not want you to slight this opportunity. So we are giving you further reasons to come up here and do your best and never miss the opportunity. So all 6 finalists will receive a gift of a smartphone from our company, of course, packaged with your data and your minutes and all of that. So all 6 finalists will walk away with their smartphones. The top 3 finalists will receive a 2-year scholarship from our company. So once you get to the finals, you are walking away with your smartphone package. And the last 3 or the top 3 finalists will walk away with a 2-year scholarship that takes them into their tertiary 2 years. All right, so first place will receive $1,600 annually, second place $1,000 annually, and third place will receive $500 annually towards the purchase of your school supplies, etc. That gets you ready for your tertiary education. The school that placed first will also walk away with a prize. We have a $3,000 prize for the school that comes first. All they simply have to do is identify the project that they're going to be working on, and we will give them that $3,000. So let me hear the school that wants that $3,000. Boy, I don't know. But it is there for the taking, so the pressure is on. Persons who are going to be competing, your school wants to walk away with everything. So for the audience, we look forward to presenting these students with this opportunity. It's really, really important to us, and we really value being able to give this incentive to our students. So we thank you very much for your support. Continue supporting Flow as we continue to develop our network. We also continue to invest in the development of youth in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Please have an enjoyable evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicola, and we are always accustomed to hearing that exciting, happy voice on radio on mornings promoting Flow. Thank you once again, and thanks to the company for continuing support to this competition. They deserve another round of applause. It's a lot of money into this. I am not. Is there a representative here from the Ministry of Education? Any official? If not, I will now call on Mrs. Johnson, LaFleur Johnson, to come and make brief remarks on behalf of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Human Rights Association.
Good afternoon to all. Mr. Chair, allow me to accept the protocol already established. My name is LaFleur Johnson, and I'm the clerk at the SPG Human Rights Association, an association established in June 1986, which marks 32 years in existence. My presence here today is an indication of the organization's support to the Lions Club St. Vincent South Annual Secondary School Speaking Competition 2018. the opportunity given to youths of this country in addressing today's topic. Violent and unpunished crime now seems to be a part of our daily lives. Enforcing death penalty has now become our only recourse, should be applauded. On behalf of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Human Rights Association, I consider it an honor to wish the Lions Club South and the students participating today all the best. May you all be winners in your presentation. Thank you.
And we are very pleased, Lafleur, we are very pleased that you and your organization can partner with us at this time. Well, it's time to get straight into the competition. Let me read for you the rules governing this year's competition. The preliminaries: each speaker shall deliver 2 speeches, a prepared speech and an impromptu speech. For the prepared speech, each speaker shall speak for a period not exceeding 10 minutes. For the impromptu speech, each speaker shall have a minute to consider the topic and no more than 2 minutes to present his or her views on that topic. Any speaker who utilizes less than 8 minutes of the allocated time for the prepared speech shall have 5 points deducted from his or her total score. Participants could refer to prepared notes from which they can make their presentations. For the prepared speech, participants who are not engaged in speaking at the time, or who are not delivering their speech, shall be absent from the room at the time the speech is being delivered, unless he or she has already delivered his or her speech. That's for the main topic only. The organizers shall appoint an official timekeeper, and we have Josanna Harris appointed, and a panel of at least 3 judges, and I will mention the names and a little details on the judges, after this. Each school is allowed to enter 1 participant, and no one who participated in previous secondary school public speaking finals organized by the Lions Club South shall be allowed to participate. All finalists will be required to attend a briefing session, and I could tell you it will be next week, Tuesday, at the Computech conference room at about 3 o'clock. So the 6 finalists coming through from this week will have to attend a briefing session where you will be given the topic for the finals and given an overview of what to expect at the finals. So those are the basic rules. In respect to the judging criteria for the main topic, for material, you have a total of 20 points. For manner, 10 points. For language, 10 points. And for voice, 10 points. The judges have further details of how to consider each of these. So I wouldn't take the time to read all the details at this stage, but for those schools who wanted, they could get the rules, the criteria, that is. So those are the rules, or the point system for the main speech. We have 3 judges here today, and I'll just give you a brief overview of those 3 persons. And judge number 1 is Rondell T.M. Dixon. You could just raise your hand for us, right? Is one of our nation's young entrepreneurs, founder of Fashion House Caribbean, which designs, manufactures, and export clothing, creators of clothing brand. Yes, now I reading this, I realize I know him very well. Yes, 784 Jeans, and part owner of the street food trailer Exo Delight located in Annisville. Mr. Dixon has had experience in public speaking at a very early age and was the champion of the South Windward Primary School public speaking competition. He successfully represented the St. Vincent Grammar School in a secondary school debate competition in 2002. As president, he led the grammar school young leaders to be the champion school that year. He was a former head prefect of the St. Vincent Grammar School and recipient of the George Phillips Excellence Award in 2004. He also graduated community college and more. It wouldn't take up much more time. We have our next judge, Mr. Steve Wiley. You know, we are accustomed to say ladies first, but ladies last this time. So Steve Wiley, a UWI graduate in management with a minor in accounting, and for 35 years he served as an executive in the executive management decision-making position at the St. Vincent Electricity Services Limited. He retired, a young man like him, retired in 2016. He's also a graduate in business administration from the University of Virginia, USA, and he also did public relations at the University of Wolverhampton, England. He has several other diplomas and certificates, including in journalism, and I could tell you more, but I will tell you one other thing. He's a former Lion of the Lions Club South. So, know him. He's part of that journey of 40 years. So that's Mr. Steve Wiley. Give him a round of applause, both men. And our lone female judge, Daniel K. Jones, is a barrister at law. For 15 years, she is called to the bar and has practiced law in St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. She is the senior legal officer of the National Insurance Services. She's an active member of the Girl Guides Association and enjoys reading and doing what she's doing here today, volunteering her time. Put your hands together for Miss Jones. So those are our 3 judges today, and we are going to move straight into the competition. Just before we retire the others, just let me brief you what will happen. When you get to the podium, you will wait, and then the bell will ring to tell you, go ahead and speak. We will not time. The stop clock will start checking the time after you finish the protocol list. So that part is not in the timekeeping. So when you hear the bell, you go to the protocol, and then you go straight into your speech. The clock will start timing you when you start your speech. At the end of 8 minutes, there will be a short ring of the bell. Just shake it, let me hear. Right? A very short ring of the bell to indicate you have 2 more minutes to wrap up. You hopefully should wrap up somewhere between that final bell. At the end of 10 minutes, the final bell will give you a long ring, right? And that means time is up. If you get to hear that final bell, that's when the judges will clock out their mind from hearing you. They will disregard anything else you say after that. if you, as I said in the rules, if you didn't hear the first bell, then you know you're going to lose 5 points. So you have to pace yourself and get a sense of the time. But when you get here, just feel comfortable. You're talking to your own friends and colleagues and your family who are listening out there. So today's topic, violent and unpunished crime now seems to be a part of our daily lives. Enforcing the death penalty has now become our only recourse. So that's the topic. I will now invite Melissa to escort the students to a holding room at the back. So please just go ahead and accept the girls' high school. Girls' high school will remain. Walk with your water if you wish to take a little time and practice in the back there. Alright? Alright. Yes. Okay, just before I invite our first speaker, Michaela Friday, I just want you, the members of the audience here at the Frenches house, to first make sure your phone is on silent. If you have to applaud, please do not do so to take up much of our time. You could do it briefly. In fact, my recommendation is that you really shouldn't applaud, but you may want to build confidence in your colleague. But it will be nice to applaud at the end rather than during the presentation. So as far as possible, if you could do that. And for all students, listen, this is a friendly competition, so the judges are focused primarily on what the criteria are saying. They ask them to look at. So if you applaud the loudest, it ain't going to sway the judges one way or the other. Huh? Don't carry any feelings. All right, if you say that. Okay, at this time, let us now invite our first participant in the 2018 National Secondary School Lions Club South Flow Public Speaking Preliminaries. Let us invite Michaela Friday to come to the podium.
Mr. Chairman, representative of FLOW, representative of the Ministry of Education, representative of the Human Rights Association, president and members of the Lions Club South, judges, principals, teachers, members of the media, listeners, and viewers, my fellow students. Violence and unpunished crime now seems to be a part of our daily lives. Enforcing the death penalty has now become our only recourse. Breaking news: body of security guard found with throat slit. Men charged for murder of Kittel's resident. Prominent travel agent and religious leader found dead. Otley Hall resident found chopped to death. These are only some of the horrific headlines recorded by our local newspapers within the months of June to September 2018, right here in our blessed nation. For this year already, the number of homicides stand at 24. Previous statistics reported by the SVG police force records 40 murders for 2016, 39 for 2017, and an average of 34 murders annually over the last 5 years. These headlines and figures are indeed worrying and can prompt one to insist on enforcing the death penalty. But stop. Think for a minute. Is the death penalty our only recourse for violent crimes? My gracious audience, we as a country cannot afford to enforce the death penalty due to Christian, legislative, diplomatic, and financial factors. Definitions sourced from the Oxford Modern English Dictionary define violence as, and I quote, using or tending to use aggressive physical force, end of quotation. And crime is, and I quote, a serious offense punishable by law, end of quotation. Violence and heinous crimes are not a new phenomenon. As a matter of fact, in the Old Testament, in Genesis chapter 4, Cain killed his brother Abel, the first murder. Cain's act, as recorded, was violent and heinous, yet he was not put to death. Rather, as stated by St. Ambrose, he was exiled far away, a preferred correction rather than the death of a sinner. As we are a Christian society, it is expected that we should use the Bible as a guide to determine recourse. Yes? True, in the Old Testament, there are several cases in which God commands the use of capital punishment. For example, in Genesis chapter 6 to 9, the flood of Noah, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah in Genesis chapter 19, taking the lives of the Egyptian firstborns in Exodus chapter 12, and destroying the Egyptian army in the Red Sea. Within the Old Testament, the principle of lex talionis, a life for a life, is tied to the creation order, where capital punishment is warranted due to the sanctity of life. So even the Bible presents the dichotomy of whether or not punishment by death is the most suitable approach. A communication produced by the SVG Christian Council in 2018, entitled A National Conversation on Crime and Violence, says that, like most of its Caribbean neighbors, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has and continues to witness high levels of violent crimes and crime-related activities. It goes on to state that the frequency and the nature of these occurrences concern the Church and provides an opportunity for deeper reflection and deliberate action. End of quotation. This is emphasized by His Holiness Pope Francis, who in August 2018, a month ago, revised the Catechism to teach that the death penalty is inadmissible and that the Church should work with determination to abolish it worldwide. While it can be argued that the duality of religious or moral stance on the death penalty is too wavering, it is still crystal clear that there is a need to have this national conversation on whether or not the death penalty is our only recourse for violent crimes. Currently, SVG operates under the ambit of the Criminal Procedure Code. This means that our criminal proceedings are guided by the Criminal Procedure Code, Cap 171. Under this legislation, if convicted of murder or any indictable offense, the courts can impose a death penalty on the accused. However, our final court of appeal is the Privy Council. The Privy Council is a judiciary body in the United Kingdom that oversees all of our appeal cases at the highest level. Persons convicted of any indictable offense have the legal right to exhaust all rights to appeal against sentencing. Yet, the Privy Council has in recent times commuted death penalty sentences to life imprisonment due to United Nations conventions. Amnesty International claims that the death penalty is a breach of human rights, the right to life, and the right to live free from torture or cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment, upheld under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the UN in 1948. Therefore, if SVG adopts the decisions of the Privy Council, it is imperative that we remove the death penalty from our books. In fact, since the year 2000, 28 cases regionally have been struck down from mandatory death penalty to life imprisonment. A local case in point is that of Daniel D. Trimmingham in the case of Trimmingham versus St. Vincent and the Grenadines. After considering the circumstances of the case, the court stated, and I quote, The case did not fall into the category of the worst, which would justify a death sentence. End of quotation. Owing to this ruling, Trimingham's case was commuted from death to life imprisonment based on the articles of the United Nations Human Rights Charter, where the death penalty is considered inadmissible punishment. Clearly, ladies and gentlemen, although our Criminal Procedure Code currently allows the sentencing of the death penalty on the books, the final Court of Appeal, being the Privy Council, has significantly reversed death penalty sentences to life imprisonment, therefore prohibiting the execution of the death penalty. This proves that SVG cannot use the death penalty as a recourse for violent crimes. Some may argue that with an alternative Court of Appeal, St. Vincent and the Grenadines can then enforce the death penalty. However, my dear people, as the saying goes, there is more in the mortar beside the pestle. Currently, SVG is a member of the United Nations, which means that we accede to a number of conventions and guidelines that govern the way in which we administer justice regarding our domestic policies. Many Vincentians cry that with our sovereign power as a nation, we can work towards a system that allows legislative freedom, as in the case of Singapore, whose Court of Appeal rejects the stance of the United Nations that their mandatory death penalty is unconstitutional. For them, the death penalty bears a rational relation to the social objective of reducing crime and deterring would-be offenders. This may be true of Singapore, who has a thriving and boosting economy and are economically independent of external aids, grants, and the like. But what we may not be aware of is that we do not have their economic freedom. Rather, we are a nation heavily dependent on the grants, favors, and goodwill of our international allies. Ladies and gentlemen, should we operate outside the parameters of these UN's guidelines? Can we afford the economic ruin and diplomatic isolation that can result as a backlash simply to enact one law that satisfies someone's idea of justice? Do you believe that the ramifications of such a drastic move are warranted for what some perceive to be the only recourse to violence and crime? No, it is not. From the foregoing, we do have a case for the reform of the criminal justice system, and we do not have to look far for a blueprint. The Juvenile Justice Reform and Reinvestment Initiative for the OECS aims to reduce repetition of crimes committed by youth and promotes rehabilitation and reintegration of youth in conflict with the law back into society. Similarly, we can introduce a more effective system of detention, which would help to bring penal justice in line with human dignity. More so, our judicial system can have rehabilitation through education of the conscience and acceptance of responsibility. So while violent and unpunished crime appears to be a part of our daily lives, our judicial system has just provisions to ensure that the perpetrators are dealt with and that justice is served. Although some may disagree, enforcing the death penalty or capital punishment is definitely not our only recourse. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michaela. And Michaela spoke for
9 minutes and 31 seconds.
9 minutes. Give her a round of applause. Very good. We're off to a good start. So we will proceed with our next competitor from the St. Clair Dacon Secondary School. We will hear from Milan Joseph, and he is on his way. So
Mr. Chairman, representative of FLO, representative of the Ministry of Education, representative of the Human Rights Association, president and members of the Lion Club South, judges, principals and teachers, members of the media, listeners and viewers, my fellow students, good afternoon. Violent and unpunished crime now seems to be part of our daily lives. Enforcing the death penalty has now become our only recourse. Mr. Chairman, although violent and unpunished crime now seems to be part of our daily lives, enforcing the death penalty is not our only recourse. My name is Milan Joseph, and in the next 10 minutes, I intend to discuss the aforementioned statement. Eyewitness News, SPG.com, in an article published April 19, 2018, quoted our Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves as saying, quote, "It is well known that there has been an increase in the prevalence and incidence of violent crimes in recent years throughout the Caribbean, including St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and this increase is unacceptable. It is a great challenge for our policymakers, communities, and nations." End of quote. Mr. Chairman, I am sure it was painful enough for our Prime Minister to acknowledge this fact, but statistics has left him little or no choice. Unfortunately, many of these crimes go unpunished and now seem to have been woven into the fabric of our daily lives. According to the figures quoted by our Prime Minister, between 2004 and 2015, the annual number of reported murder were as follows: 11, 25, 24, 13, 36, 27, 20, 20. Enforcing the death penalty is seen as a recourse because it is cheaper than keeping convicted criminals in prison for the rest of their natural lives. Economically, it results in less burden on taxpayers' money. However, one in 2018 states that the death penalty has no deterrent effect on crimes. He suggested that the claim that each execution deters a certain number of murders have been thoroughly discredited by social science research. Moreover, capital punishment risks the execution of innocent persons, since an individual may be wrongfully accused, tried, and found guilty of a crime he or she didn't commit. Mr. Chairman, advocates call for the death penalty because they believe that the capital punishment is an appropriate form of punishment for violent crimes such as murder. They believe that the victim's family will sleep better at night knowing that justice was served. On the contrary, Mr. Chairman, in civilized societies, the principle of literally doing criminals what they do their victims is unacceptable. The penalty for rape cannot be rape. The penalty for arson cannot be the burning down of an arsonist's house. We should not therefore punish the murderer with death. The death penalty does not render justice to victims, but instead fosters vengeance. The commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," has the absolute value and applies to both the innocent and the guilty. Additionally, it must not be forgotten that the inviolable and God-given right to life also belongs to the criminal. Capital punishment is immoral in principle and cruel and inhumane. How likely is it that a killer will be more deterred by the risk of the death penalty than by having to spend the rest of his life in prison? Mr. Chairman, criminologists conclude that the death penalty does not influence violent criminals. Capital punishment is a barbaric and primitive remnant of uncivilized societies. Like slavery, the death penalty is a relic of another era and represents the dark side of human beings. I believe that everyone has the potential to correct and to improve and correct themselves. Therefore, it remains possible to deter criminal activity without resorting to the death penalty. The Acting Commissioner of Police, Mr. Colin John, speaking on a popular morning radio program, stated that the police have implemented innovative measures to combat violent crimes. These include random stop and searches and placing mobile police stations in so-called hotspots. In addition, Minister of Finance, Camilo Gonzalez, said his government is in advanced conversation with Taiwan to install a number of closed-circuit television cameras at strategic locations in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, beginning with a pilot project of 20 to 40 cameras this year. These closed-circuit television cameras will be linked to a monitoring site at the Central Police Station in Kingstown. The minister also boasted that his government is offering concession to businesses who import closed-circuit television cameras of a particular quality in an effort to increase security and deter criminal activities. Mr. Chairman, have we forgotten the old adage of being our brother's keeper? As a student given this wonderful opportunity, I encourage everyone in my listening to more earnestly look out for each other. I have heard of established neighborhood watches that are effective and have stemmed the spate of crime. All in all, Mr. Chairman, although violent and unpunished crime now seems to be part of our daily lives, enforcing the death penalty has not become our only recourse. With smart and timely interventions by our policymakers, along with good old-fashioned yet unfailing moral principles that we embrace as Christian society, together we can combat the issue of violent and unpunished crime without having to enforce the death penalty. Mr. Chairman, I thank you.
Thank you very much. From the St. Clair Dacon Secondary School, Milan Joseph. Put your hands together once again for his presentation. And he spoke for 6 minutes and 26 seconds. We will move on to the next speaker. From the Bishop's College, Kingstown, Fitzroy Morgan.
Mr. Chairman, representative of Flo. Mr. Chairman, representative of Flo, representative of the Ministry of Education, representative of the Human Rights Association South, president and members of Lion Club, judges, principal, teachers, members of the media, listening viewers, my fellow students. Colin Campbell Ross, Australia, Wei Ann, China, Harry Gleason, Ireland, the Perry family, United Kingdom. Chairperson, it is quite possible for me to stand here for the time allotted simply calling names, but at the end, you would ask the question, who are these people? They are, or should I say, were persons who have been tried, convicted, and executed and found to be innocent after death. In the case of the Perry family, a mother and 2 sons were executed for the killing of William Harrison because one of the sons confessed to the killing. 2 years later, you learn that William Harrison simply showed up. Yes, showed up. Centuries later, this remains an interesting story. William Harrison was killed, an entire family was executed, and then he was alive again. And it was not a resurrection story or some kind of miracle. Stories such as that of the Perry family make me cringe. Oh yes, it happened a long, long time ago. Certainly we are doing better, right? Wrong. In 1953, 19-year-old Englishman Derek Bentley, an illiterate epileptic, was hanged and exonerated after death. With all that could go wrong, when the death penalty is enforced, one must examine all arguments before conceding to any school of thought.
Are we in St. Vincent and the Grenadines experiencing an increase in violent crimes? We certainly are. For instance, murder figures have been climbing steadily since 2012 and have remained above 20 murders per year since 2007. Are crimes going unpunished? A perusal of our nation's newspaper would discredit the claim that they are. Perhaps in some cases, justice is delayed, and perhaps in other cases, the punishment to some might seem too little. However, there is currently no empirical data to support the sweeping generalization that crimes go unpunished. Chairperson, the death penalty is certainly not our only recourse to combat violent crimes. Proponents of the death penalty or capital punishment are often quick to suggest that it is the ultimate warning. In other words, people will be less likely to commit heinous crimes because they themselves fear death. Quite a rational and noble idea. But, according to sociologist Professor F. Riemer, some offenders commit their crimes because of major psychiatric disorders, problems stemming from trauma, poor innate impulse control, and addiction. Some persons too are perhaps too young to understand the full impact of their actions. I am sure most of us recall in 2015, a fifth form student was fatally wounded by a then grade 6 student. Should our stance in SVG there be for kill them all? Certainly we are far from being barbarians. Should our stance in SVG therefore be kill them all? Our death penalty laws are affected by the rulings of the Eastern Caribbean Court of Appeal. Therefore, as elucidated in Wilson v. the Queen 2005, it is mandatory in murder cases for the judge to consider the personal circumstances of the convicted person, the gravity of the offense, the factors that caused the murder, the execution of the offense, and the possibility of reform. The death sentence should only be imposed in cases where punishment would not be achieved by any other means. Associate Professor of Law Megan J. Ryan explains, rehabilitation focuses on the offender's direct effects on society. In the Searchlight newspaper of March 23, 2018, we are told, since the Vetiver Grass project began, 39 inmates who have participated have left prison. To date, none has returned. Several of them are using their skill to make a living. Our courts have long opined that the death penalty is not our only recourse. Rehabilitation must be considered. Another major argument in support of the death penalty is that it provides closure for the victims' loved ones. Again, the evidence to support such a view does not exist. However, we do know that some families are not of the opinion that the death of a rapist or even a mass murderer allows them to heal. Let's consider the story of Marietta Lane. Mrs. Lane's 7-year-old daughter was kidnapped. A year later, she received a call from her daughter's kidnapper stating that he had killed her. Punishment. She claims, I quote, "Loved ones deserve more beautiful memorials than state-sanctioned killings. The death penalty only creates more victims and more grieving families. By becoming people who kill people, we insult the memory of all our precious victims. That dehumanizes us." End of quotation. United Nations Assistant General for Human Rights adds, "We need not kill to show that we are committed to fight crime. There is no evidence that the death penalty deters any crime." Chairperson, because capital punishment is seen as a means to closure, it is also deemed a source of retribution. The BBC's Ethic Guide states, "Real justice requires people to suffer for their wrongdoing in an appropriate way for the crime. A murderer deserves death." Chairperson, it would be careless of me to ignore this moral conundrum, so please permit me to speak from the ethos of our predominantly Christian society. In the document, Building a Culture of Peace in Our Communities and Our Nation, the SVG Christian Council declares, "We are all worthy of respect and honor. Violence, no matter how disguised, angers God, reduces both the perpetrator and the victim to less than human, and prevent the whole society from optimizing their full potentials." Chairperson, do not believe that I am asserting that this is the view of all Christians in SVG. In fact, the Christian society is as divided as the general populace on capital punishment. There are those who quote scriptures such as Genesis 9:6 that reads, "Whoever sheds the blood of a man, by man his blood shall be shed." Others respond by quoting Romans 12:17-19, in which the Lord states, "It's mine to revenge." The battle is of epic proportions. Who would win? The revenge seekers or the forgiveness proclaimers? Perhaps, chairperson, there would never be a victory lap. On October 10, 2017, World Day Against the Death Penalty, UN Secretary General Guterres pleaded, "Executions have no place in the 21st century. The death penalty does little to serve victims or deter crime, and there will always be a risk of miscarriage of justice." He further expounded, 170 states have either abolished it or stopped using it. A developing country such as ours does not need the possible fallouts that could occur if we reintroduce the death penalty. We would be in contradiction of the UN's mandate to abolish capital punishment. As outlined in 2009 by Singapore's permanent representative to the UN, except we become less dependent on the West for economic aid, developing states will find it difficult to stand up for what we believe in issues such as the death penalty. Small states even take positions at the UN contrary to their national legislation because of pressure by developed states. In Chapter 1 of our Constitution states, "No person shall be deprived of his life intentionally, save in execution of the sentence of the court." In 1995, Douglas Hamilton was executed for murder. He was linked to the murder scene by a 14-year-old boy. Courts of Appeal records state that the defense never received a copy of the witness statement. Hamilton's appeal cited 10 grounds, including his conviction, and was solely on circumstantial evidence. And the judge herself in summary noted that the witness was unreliable. Interesting. Chairperson, one thing is certain today. There is no evidence to support the death penalty as being a means to curb heinous crimes. This belief is merely speculative. Moreover, there is too much to lose if we as a nation resort to capital punishment. Chairperson, another UN Day Against the Death Penalty quickly approaches. Should we in SVG choose to sharpen our pitchforks? I think not. Chairperson, I am obliged.
Thank you very much, Fixer Morgan from the Bishop's College, Kingstown. She spoke for
9 minutes and 33 seconds.
9 minutes and 33 seconds. We are going very good. And there's another ready like Freddy. Just giving the judges a brief moment. Next we are going to hear from the Dr. J.P. Eustace Memorial Secondary School, Desiree De Silva, and she is going to share her views on this very interesting topic. Before she takes the podium, let me remind you tomorrow we will be here again, and it will be the turn of Zone 2, where you should hear from schools like the Camden Park Secondary School, St. Vincent Grammar School, Beckway Seventh-day Adventist Secondary, Beckway Community High, Intermediate High School, and the West St. George Secondary School. And tomorrow they will be speaking on the topic, in a modern society, there can be no valid justification for vigilante justice. However, the laws around citizens' arrests do not help in the enforcement of law and order. That's the topic for tomorrow. I will share later the topics for the other zones that continues on Thursday and Friday. Now let us hear from our representative, from the J.P. Eustace Secondary. Ms. De Silva, podium is yours.
Mr. Chairman, Representative of Flow, Representative of Minister of Education, Representative of Human Rights Association, President and members of Lion Club South, judges, principals, teachers, members of the media, listeners and viewers, and my fellow students, pleasant good afternoon. Every great and deep difficulty bears in itself its own solution. Mr. Chairman, as a society, we have grown accustomed to addressing the symptoms of problems, but we neglect to deal with problems at the root. We take the proverbial Advil to deal with the symptoms of headaches, while the cause of the headache goes unaddressed. And though the symptoms are temporarily addressed, the headache lurks to return another day. Such is the argument that the death penalty has now become our only recourse. Violence and crimes are symptoms, Mr. Chairman. Thus, if we are to reduce or eliminate violent crimes, we must tackle it at its source. As such, Mr. Chairman, in response to the topic, violence and unpunished crime now seems to be a part of our daily lives. Enforcing the death penalty has now become our only recourse. I must say that I strongly disagree. Before I continue with my discourse, I wish to provide some pertinent definitions. According to Simple English Wikipedia Encyclopedia, death penalty, also called capital punishment, is when a government or state executes or kills someone, usually but not always, because he or she has committed a serious crime. Recourse is defined as a source of help in a difficult situation. The word only is defined as a loan of its kind, single or solitary, alone deserving consideration. So, our topic for consideration this afternoon can be interpreted in this way. The death penalty alone deserves consideration as a source of help in this difficult situation. Mr. Chairman, only those with limited vision and limited creative genius can accept such a thesis. An intricately complex and diverse issue, such as crime, has multiple solutions. And I dare say, some solutions can be much more effective than the death penalty. Mr. Chairman, my position is this. Not only is the death penalty not our only solution, it is also not the most effective on the list. My listening audience, with the belief that some of you are for the death penalty, I have researched and carefully examined its shortcomings for you. One of the greatest arguments against this method of punishment is a charge well articulated by an English jurist, Sir William Blackstone, who said, "It is better that 10 guilty persons escape than one innocent suffers." Indeed, we have had the unfortunate experience of executing innocent men. So offensive is the mere possibility that it is accepted that it will be better to allow 9 guilty to go free. This, Mr. Chairman, is an ideology which strongly is my approval. John Van Ruhen, a South African law professor, comments on the death penalty in this way, and I quote, "Death penalty is a cheap way for politically inclined people to pretend to fearful constituents that something is being done to combat crime." End of quote. Secondly, and just as crucial, is the reality that many times violent crimes are never solved. Never solved. As in, criminals are never arrested, charged, prosecuted, nor convicted. We must therefore ask ourselves how a death penalty is going to stem crime when many criminals are never even convicted. Case in point, the death of South African woman Lorraine Heath on November 2nd, 1996, caused our country to be in the limelight internationally. Heath's husband discovered her dead on their yacht in the Cumberland area. 2 South African police detectives spent 3 weeks here as part of the investigation into Heath's death. They identified 2 men whom they believed were possibly involved in the crime. According to the Searchlight newspaper of October 21st, 2005, since their findings, there has been no announcement that anyone has been arrested in relation to that offense. Furthermore, the death of our very own Glenn Jackson, among others, have left a bitter taste in our mouths. Many deaths, Mr. Chairman, have still remained a mystery to law enforcement officers here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Ought we to find a scapegoat to via capital punishment, satisfy the nation's cravings for justice, safety, and political likability? Indeed, there is not a shred of evidence that supports the supposition that the death penalty will deter would-be criminals and reduce crime. Google lacks such. There's absolutely no credible evidence that the death penalty deters crime more effectively than a prison term. In fact, crime-associated figures from countries which have banned the death penalty have not risen, and in some cases, they have actually gone down. In Canada, for example, the murder rate in 2008 was less than half the number of 1976's murders, 1976 being the year when the death penalty was abolished there. These limitations are precisely why I stand before you all, humbly submitting that the death penalty is not the most effective means of addressing crime. Mr. Chairman, while I must agree that violent and unpunished crimes now seems to be a part of our daily lives, I wholeheartedly resent the notion that the death penalty is our only recourse. Violent and unpunished crimes are only symptoms, and what we truly need to do is tackle the source. Alternately then, Mr. Chairman, the most effective form of crime prevention, of addressing crime at its source, is education. Statistics worldwide reveal that the most accused persons dropped out of school at an early age. I wish to use this opportunity to encourage my fellow participants and students here in attendance to continue steadfastly on your academic journey. Having an education will advantage you for the straight and narrow path. Mr. Chairman, it is also undeniable that the family is the cornerstone of our society. It is my decided view that the breakdown of the family is a cause of crime in our society. Parental separation, absent fathers and father figures, immoral family values, and poverty's compromises do lead to fractured, damaged, depressed family environments, which can lead to crime. Actually, when we examine the violent gang members, runaways, high school dropouts, and teens in prison, the sort of kids who get in trouble with the law, they have something in common. Most of them are from fatherless homes. According to the Criminal Justice and Behavior, Volume 14, page 403, when a father is absent, kids are 5 times more likely to commit suicide or use drugs. They are 20 times more likely to end up in prison. Therefore, as future leaders and parents, we the young must ensure that we embrace education, treat family with uttermost respect, hold parental duties as sacred. When we do this, we will help to curb the problem of crime and violence that is escalated in our blessed land. Restoration and reinstatement of family values and divine principles at home and at school will also serve to alleviate crime frequency, extent, and prevalence. When these proposals become priority, popular, and principles of our communities, culture, and country, we will have no need for resorting to capital punishment as a plaster for the sore of crime. Ladies and gentlemen, students, Mr. Chairman, I thank you.
She deserves another round of applause. Oh, come on. Thank you very much. Dr. J.P. Eustace Memorial Secondary School, represented by Desra De Silva. We have impromptu coming soon, eh? That's the exciting part. So, how long she spoke?
For 9 minutes and 6 seconds.
9 minutes and 6 seconds. Thank you very much. And coming to address us at this time from the St. Joseph's Convent, Kingstown, Jovian Edwards, and she is going to be speaking on this important topic. Violent and unpunished crime now seems to be a part of our daily lives. Enforcing the death penalty has now become our only recourse. And she has all 10 minutes to tell us her position on this topic. I think the judges are ready. So.
Mr. Chairman, representative from FLO, representative of the Ministry of Education, representative of the Human Rights Association, president and members of the Lions Club South, judges, principal, teachers, members of the media, listeners and viewers, my fellow students. I was scrolling through social media recently and happened upon a news headline stating that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is becoming the murder capital of the world. In view of the said comment, I find it interesting that I should be asked to speak on this topic today. Violent and unpunished crime now seems to be a part of our daily lives. Enforcing the death penalty has now become our only recourse. Permit me to define the words crime and death penalty. According to the Collins English Dictionary, crime is an illegal action or activity for which a person can be punished by law. It further defines the death penalty as punishment by death for people who have committed very serious crimes. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, murder is a crime that carries a death penalty. The problem of crime has been a constant menace to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. From petty theft of a slice of cake to armed robbery, rape, and murder, crime continues to dominate our blessed land. Many young people, particularly young men, lose their lives frequently because of crime. Crime has become part of our daily lives. Over the years, perpetrators face possible sentences such as curfews, suspended sentences, bonds to keep the peace, and fines. But to what extent were these sentences effective? We have seen perpetrators breaching their bonds and breaking their curfews, while reappearing in court for offenses of a similar nature or even worse. It is clear that these criminals need stiffer penalties. Then one may ask, what must we do to curb crime in our country? How long can we in this little island be stalked by fear? The argument that the death penalty does not deter crimes is not debatable. We must all remember the case of Daniel Trimingham, better known as Compy, was sentenced to death for the murder of Clair livestock farmer. Albert Bertie Brown, Compy had disemboweled and beheaded the elderly man before burying his body and head in separate shallow graves in the Clair Mountains. His attempt to have sentence revoked by the Caribbean Court of Appeal failed. but the British Privy Council upheld this appeal against sentence. You see, in 2009, the British Privy Council stipulated that the imposition of the death penalty is impermissible, only if crime is considered to be the worst of the worst. The British Privy Council, upholding this appeal, ruled that compaced crime was not the worst of the worst. Minister, Chairman, if taking someone's life by pulling out their intestines, chopping their head off, burying their body and head in two separate graves is not the worst of the worst, what method of taking a man's life will be considered the worst of the worst? What sort of message are we sending to other criminals? Opponents of the death penalty claim that capital punishment is unnecessary since a life sentence accomplishes the same objectives. What death penalty opponents neglect to tell us is that convicted murderers and child rapists escape from prison every year. A life in prison sentence does not guarantee an offender will stay in prison. Death penalty is final. Convicted murderers will never get a second chance to commit any further offense. Death penalty is surely the way to go to eliminate the scourge in our violent crime society. If the right example or precedence is not set, St. Vincent and the Grenadines will continue to be the playground for criminals. Do you still consider our island to be the land of the blessed, with an average of 37 murders per year? The death penalty is a critical tool for law enforcement and criminal prosecutors to protect public safety. Former U.S. President George Bush once stated, and I quote, "I think the reason to support the death penalty is because it saves other people's lives," end of quote. Mr. Chairman, allow me to go further abroad. Michael Summers, Professor of Management Science at the Pepperdine University, in his November 2, 2000 piece wrote, and I quote, "Capital punishment works. Our recent research shows that each execution carried out is about 74 fewer murders the following year." Yes, 74 fewer murders. The study used from the Federal Bureau of Investigation examined the relationship between the number of executions and the number of murders in the U.S. for the 26th period from 1978 to 2004. Summers continued, "There seems to be an obvious correlation in that when executions increase, murders decrease, and when executions decrease, murders increase. Many people's greatest fear is death. Therefore, if they know that death is a possible consequence for their actions, they are less likely to perform such actions. Those opposed to the death penalty argue that it is immoral for the government to take a life of a citizen under any circumstance. But according to Immanuel Kant, a German philosopher, and I quote, "A society that is not willing to demand the life of somebody who has taken another life is simply immoral," end of quote. However, the point made by the capital punishment can serve as a deterrent for many criminals. It is not the only recourse. Before we arrive at the death penalty, we must seek to employ preventative measures before we get to the point of making the death penalty our last resort. We must first consider our means of addressing the increasing violence and crime within our society. And where better to begin than in our homes? Figures show that persons arrested for murders are relatively young men in their teens or early adulthood. There is a need to institute programs that help parents, mothers in particular, in raising children such a way that they are most likely will not run afoul of the law. Then there is the influence of music on our young people. Our young people are exposed to violent and vulgar lyrics that pervade the airways of our radio stations
on aboard minivans every day. For example, the lyrics of the popular dancehall musician Popcorn in his song Stray Dog not only encourages the act of murder, but clearly states how it must be done. M1 rifles strap on me back, crack his skull like calabash. Have you ever bust a man throat with a hatchet? You know nothing about badness. Failure to enforce the necessary legislation has caused criminals to operate on a free-for-all mentality because nothing is being done to send a clear message of intolerance of those with behaviors like that. Based on reports from an online newspaper, News 784, the Minister of National Security, the Honorable Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, stated between 2007 and 2017, there was an aggregate of 289 reported murders, 157 of which were occasioned by gunshot wounds. This is a cause for serious concern. Where are these guns coming from? Laws already exist to prevent the illegal importation of guns in the hands of irresponsible, lawless individuals. What is needed is aggressive enforcement of these laws. There is a dire need for early intervention when young people commit crimes. Petty offenders grow up to become hardened criminals. Rather than sentencing first-time petty offenders to prison, an alternative should be sought that will lead to reformation. Until we have explored all options and they have not worked, our only recourse should be the death penalty. We must refute the claims that crime is everywhere. Does this mean we must let crime and violence dominate our society? Murders is a serious crime, and in laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it carries a death penalty. This is one way in which victims' families get some form of justice, while it cannot return our loved ones. Eliminating crime and criminals is our duty, and we cannot ignore it. I thank you.
Thank you very much from the St. Joseph's Convent, Kingstown, Desra De Silva. Sorry, that Desra is from the JP Eustace. I was just writing the name, so the name stuck there. That's Jovian Edwards. Jovian Edwards, put your hands together for her. Oh, you are really paying attention. Good. And you're a very good audience today, I must say. No interruption, no loud noise, no phone ringing in between, no big set of talking. Oh, we had one. Okay, just one. And Jovian Edwards spoke for
10 minutes and 9 seconds.
10 minutes and 9 seconds. Put your hands together for again. Good. And that's for all the participants here. And now we get to the next round, the impromptu category. And in this category, let me remind you students, the judges are going to be looking for and will give you 5 points of material. So what you say and so on. Your manner of speaking, 5 points. Your language, 5 points. And your voice, 5 points. So it's a total of 20 points for the impromptu category. You, when I call you, will be approaching the podium in the same order as before. And you will, Mr. Lion Noel Dixon, will have the bag with the topics, the envelope with the topics, and you will select one, hand it to me, then I will read the topic for the audience, and then you will be given the first bell, signaling start to prepare, So you have 1 minute to prepare. When you hear the second bell, that means you begin to speak. And you are allowed to speak for up to 2 minutes. There is no punishment or there is no penalty for you if you speak less than 2 minutes or less than a minute. There's no penalty for that. The only penalty you might get is that you may not use enough time to develop your material and so on to gain more points. But there's no punishment as in the main presentation. Okay, so we're going to follow the same order. And we will now invite from the St. Vincent Girls High School, Michaela Friday. You do not have to repeat the protocol, so you could go straight into your presentation when you finish. So I will remove the protocol list from the podium. And our topic is earthquake. Earthquake.
Earthquakes. Earthquakes are tremors that take place when the plates beneath the earth glide together. They are very dire issues that take place in our country from time to time. They destroy houses, they take lives, they tear people apart, and they are not good for us. But there is something good about earthquakes. Because if you are living in a community that is not brought together, because of these destructions, there can be a light that brings you together because you need help from each other in order to get through it. In my personal experience, I have experienced a vast amount of earthquakes. One recently being the earthquake that took place a few months ago. I was in my house sitting down, and I just felt the house shaking, and I thought I was going to die. So earthquakes can be good, earthquakes can be bad, but they happen for many reasons. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michaela, on the topic earthquakes. Sometimes when you're on a podium like this, you feel like earthquaking. But let's see. And we'll now hear from the St. Clair Dacon Secondary School, Milan Joseph. Oh, the time. Sorry, I skipped in this time.
Michaela spoke for 2 minutes and 6 seconds.
1 minute and 6 seconds.
One.
Spoke.
One.
No, remember the first minute is discounted
1
for...
minute and 6 seconds.
Yeah, the first minute is discounted for the preparation. So it's the time she spoke. Yeah, so 1 minute. The time clock will say 2 minutes because we are timing the first minute and then the period of speaking. That's okay. And his topic is growing up. Growing up.
My topic is growing up. Growing up is a part of life. There are several stages of growing up. You have infancy, toddler, childhood, adolescence, and adult. In my experience of growing up, I learned a lot of amazing things. I learned how to ride a bike. I learned how to speak my first words. I even learned how to tell my mom I loved her. Growing up teaches you a lot. There are bad things about growing up and good things about growing up. You have the fact that there can be peer pressure amongst other individuals. They can lead you to do drugs, alcohol, and other bad things. Also, there are good sides of growing up, like you can learn how to write, you can learn your education, you can go to college, get a degree, and even get an amazing job. Mr. Chairman, I thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Milan, Joseph, growing up. Seem to be you're a nice boy, you're a good boy. Growing up, yes. And he spoke for?
1 minute and 24 seconds.
1 minute and 24 seconds, yes. Sorry about that little mistake with the other bell there. That was when you crossed the second minute. So you have 1 more minute still. And our next speaker from the Bishop's College, Kingstown, is Miss Morgan, and she's going to speak on an interesting topic close to her school, Vincent music. Vincent music.
My topic is Vincent music. Vincentian music calms the soul and soothes the mind. Pan, our beautiful pan music, has a soothing rhythm. It gyrates your waist. Around the carnival seasons, we have various pan competitions from pan organizations such as Salif and Sign Hill. Soca, around the carnival time, we have various competitions of soca music. The jumpy lyrics that always plays on Fridays in bands, and we call it Soca Friday. Everyone loves Soca Friday. Even on days when we are sad, we listen to our very calming music and we find it very interesting. Even rap is developing here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Our youths are now becoming familiar with this type of music because it is a form of art and poetry. Music, it helps us to dance, it helps us to unwind. It plays at weddings, and it is very important for us to listen to music, even for mothers that are carrying a baby. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Morgan, Fitzroy Morgan. She spoke for
1 minute and 15 seconds.
1 minute, 15 seconds. Thank you. Vincent music. When I say Vincent music close to a school, I mean the Victoria Park where a lot of the Vincent music happen. And the next speaker From the Dr. J.P. Eustace Memorial Secondary School, Desiree De Silva, and she's going to speak on the topic, My Biggest Fear. My biggest fear.
Protocol having already been established, good afternoon again. My impromptu topic is my biggest fear. Fear is something that gets your heart pumping. It's like a scared or terrified feeling or emotion. My biggest fear is honestly lizards. They are very small creatures, but after my experience with lizards, I honestly don't like them. My experience with a lizard was, I was in a classroom one day, and the teacher asked one of the students to remove a lizard from the classroom because she was also very afraid of lizards. And I went and I played brave, and I picked up the lizard, and the lizard bit me. So I am honestly very afraid of lizards. That is my biggest fear. No matter what anybody say, nobody could get me to touch a lizard. Thank you.
My biggest fear, lizard. You could see public speaking is one of your things. You ain't afraid of that. That's good. Now we will hear from our final speaker in the impromptu category. Oh, sorry, she spoke for
1 minute, 3 seconds.
1 minute, 3 seconds. And our final speaker from the St. Joseph's Convent, Kingstown, Jovian Edwards, and her topic is fake news. Fake news.
Principal, teachers, students, listening audience, a pleasant good afternoon. My topic is fake news. Fake news, this is carried around by many persons in society. Fake news, this type of news is not accurate at all. Stating that statement, there was an example or a recent occurrence that happened maybe a few weeks ago. Fake news was carried around about this girl who had did this terrifying event. In my opinion, fake news should not be carried around at all because it makes people feel that is this really the accurate news that really happened? Or is this what happened that happened earlier in this year or even? I thank you.
Thank you very much, Jovian Edwards. She spoke for
1 minute, 22 seconds.
1 minute, 22 seconds. Put your hands together again for all the participants for coming up and bravely speaking on something they knew nothing about until they got to this podium. It's not an easy thing to do, but we do appreciate the bravery and the effort. Before we have the presentations, I just want to remind you that we are going to be back here tomorrow from 1:30. We will hear the Zone 2 competition, Camden Park Secondary School, St. Vincent Grammar School, Beckway Seventh-day Adventist, Beckway Community High, Intermediate High School, and West St. George Secondary School. And they will speak on the topic, in a modern society, there can be no valid justification for vigilante justice. However, the laws around citizens' arrest do not help in the enforcement of law and order. On Thursday, we will be hearing from the St. Joseph's Convent, Mariquah, Mountain View Seventh-day Adventist Secondary, Georgetown Secondary, Adelphi Secondary, North Union, Sandy Bay, and George Stevens Senior Secondary School. Their topic, the incidence of sexual abuse of minors in the country is a disturbing phenomenon, but is simply a symptom of moral decay. Okay, and the final zone on Friday will be from the St. Martin Secondary School, Central Leeward Secondary School, Trumuka Secondary, Pitty Bodell Secondary, Thomas Saunders Secondary, and the Bookament Secondary School. And their topic is, the reduction in backyard farming has exposed a sizable part of our population to genetically engineered foods and pesticides. A buy local campaign is one sure way to ensure our nation consumes more organic and natural food. So those are the competitions for the remainder of the week. At this time, I will invite my assistant. So this is Melissa Vera. She's my deputy in hosting today's zone. And she will stand there, and I will invite the speakers to receive their certificate of participation. And we'll begin with the St. Vincent Girls High School, Michaela Friday. Walk this way. Put your hands together again. From the St. Clair Dacon Secondary School, Milan Joseph. From the Bishop's College, Kingstown, Fitzria Morgan. From the JP Eustace Memorial Secondary, Desra De Silva. And from the St. Joseph's Convent, Kingstown, Jovian Edwards. Thank you very much, Melissa, Lion Melissa. I'd also like at this stage, and before we close, to thank the owner of French's House, Mr. Errol Allen, for hosting all our zonal competition here today. I wish to thank our student there, Giovanna. Is Giovanna right? She left. Giovanna, welcome for bringing God's presence to this afternoon's competition, doing the opening prayer. I'd like to also thank all the representatives of the Human Rights Association and our partner Flo in bringing remarks at the opening. Let me extend grateful thanks to all the teachers who have worked so hard over the last month preparing our students and making sure they come out, and I must tell you, I was very encouraged by the presentation, all presentations here today. Let me thank you all, students. And don't mind you spoke for under 6 minutes. You could very well find your way still into the final. Under 7 minutes, that is. You only have a deduction of 5 points. You could have done very well out there and still find your way in. So let's be hopeful. But the idea is that 6 persons will move through from the 4 preliminaries into the finals, and we'll have a briefing at Michael John's Computer Conference Room next Tuesday to prepare you for the finals. I also wish to thank all the students for doing a very good job again. I'm emphasizing that. Give them all a round of applause. Let me thank Jesana Harris for doing, Leo Jesana Harris for doing the timekeeping today. And this is the first time she's doing it. Thank you. To the media houses, WFM, you all didn't know this, that Success Radio in Canada was bringing this live as well. Success Radio in Canada was bringing the public speaking live in Canada. Nice Radio, Facebook Live, as well as VC3 channel 4. Sorry, it's 14 or 114? Channel 114. I'll also like to thank Melissa for helping me take in charge of this part of the competition. Tomorrow it will be Michael's zone. He is taking care of things tomorrow, Lion Michael and Monel Marksman. Thank you, Lion Noel, for assisting us, and most importantly, thank you to you 3 volunteers who are giving you 4 afternoons to do this for the young people of this country. Our judges, thank you all, and look forward to see you tomorrow. Thank you, Human Rights. Jeannie, welcome. Now I see you there, and we hope you will come here tomorrow and listen to their presentation on that very interesting topic as well. Have a safe journey home. Thank you, students. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, teachers.